Welcome back to another Explainer. So, have you ever stopped to wonder how an entire nation actually goes about, well, engineering its workforce? It's a huge question. Today, we're unpacking exactly that. We're going to track the fascinating evolution of a highly strategic, yet honestly almost entirely overlooked organization. It's called the Pakistan Manpower Institute, or PMI for short.
It really is a massive challenge, right? How do you take millions of workers and align them with the rapidly shifting demands of a global economy? Well, today we're diving into a real-world case study of an institution that was basically forced to adapt an aging bureaucracy to a hyper-fast digital world. It is an absolute masterclass in institutional survival.
To truly understand PMI, we first have to define its core DNA. Everything this institute does centers around human resource development, or HRD. But for a state, this isn't just about standard hiring and firing. We are talking about the strategic planning, the deep statistical research, and the specialized training required to bridge the massive gap between a nation's raw labor supply and its actual industrial demand. You can kind of think of it as the ultimate matchmaking service for a country's economy.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the genesis of the institute, unpack the anatomy of its bureaucracy, track its shift toward capacity building, explore the digital transformation, and finally look at its legacy and vision for the future.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the genesis of PMI, from dry statistics to a national vision.
PMI's journey is honestly an incredible story of survival and evolution. It was founded way back in 1975 under Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. It basically began as this post-reform vision to fix a severe lack of skilled manpower at the time. Throughout the 1980s, it operated as the critical data hub for the National Manpower Commission, feeding all these raw statistics into Pakistan's 5-year development plans. But the real test? That came in 2011. Following a major constitutional amendment, the entire Ministry of Labor was devolved to the provinces. Yet PMI was deemed so strategically essential that it actually survived at the federal level, eventually leaping into the future to focus on AI and green jobs today.
And we really need to ground this in reality, because this isn't just some abstract policy concept floating around in the ether. It's a physical campus, situated directly on Shara-e-Sarwardi, right near the zero-point interchange. This purpose-built facility sits at the absolute nerve center of Pakistan's capital, Islamabad.
Moving right along to Section 2, anatomy of the bureaucracy, inside the engine room.
So, to understand how decisions are actually made here, you have to look at the government's Basic Pay Scale, or BPS system. It operates like this cascading waterfall of authority. It starts at the very top with the Director General, who is currently Ms. Farhat Shafiq, operating at a BPS 20 or 21 level. Below that, you've got directors at BPS 19 heading up specific wings like training and research. Then deputy directors at BPS 18 who coordinate the actual workshops, all the way down to assistant directors at BPS 17 who run the data cells and provide that vital technical research.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows the brilliant flexibility hidden within what looks like a super rigid system. On one side, you have standard BPS technical tracks, career civil servants making standard government salaries. But on the other hand, PMI utilizes specialized management position, or MP, scales. This allows the government to entirely bypass standard pay grades and basically parachute in top-tier private sector industry experts to teach highly specialized skills. And we're talking salaries that can reach over 770,000 rupees a month. It's just this ingenious hybrid approach to talent acquisition.
All right, Section 3. Shift to capacity building, modernizing the public servant. Because by the time the 21st century rolled around, PMI had a massive revelation. Just gathering data wasn't going to cut it anymore. They needed to modernize the people actually running the country.
So there was a massive paradigm shift in how they operated. Back during the 80s and 90s, their focus was almost entirely on projection techniques, dry labor statistics, and, maintaining manual ledgers. But between 2013 and 2016, they completely pivoted. They realized civil servants needed a deep understanding of human resources, so they introduced rigorous soft skills training, things like leadership, negotiation, persuasion, and conflict management. They essentially stopped just counting the workforce and started actively training its leaders.
Now, I want you to guess what the fee is for government-nominated participants to actually take these courses. Seriously, think of a number. Well, it's zero. Absolutely nothing. That is the exact fee charged to federal and provincial officers attending the annual training calendar workshops. It represents an incredible state-funded investment in human capital, ensuring that tight budgets never prevent public sector leaders from upskilling.
Which brings us to Section 4, the digital transformation, aligning with the skills for all vision.
how exactly does an aging bureaucracy survive the digital age?
Well, recently placed under the administrative control of the Ministry of Federal Education, PMI had to modernize, and I mean fast. If we map out this metamorphosis, it is super striking. Pre-2019, everything relied on manual nominations and basic planning. From 2021 to 2025, they dragged the whole system into the modern era, shifting to e-governance portals and teaching data analytics and MS Project. And looking ahead to 2026, they are fully integrating digital tech, teaching cutting-edge courses on generative AI and sustainability directly to public servants.
Finally, Section 5, Legacy and Future Vision, a global and green footprint. Let's examine exactly where their vision is focused for 2026 and beyond.
So, PMI definitely doesn't operate in a vacuum. Their global footprint is surprisingly massive. They actively partner with the International Labor Organization, UNESCO, and the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung. On top of that, they provide the underlying labor market research that supports vital government-to-government manpower agreements with countries like South Korea, Japan, and Italy. Add to that their flagship academic journal, the Pakistan Manpower Review, and this really aggressive transition toward green jobs, and you see an institution that is quietly shaping international labor flows.
And when we break down their actual training priorities for 2026, you see a clear blueprint for a digital and environmentally accountable future. 30% of their focus is now squarely on generative AI. Another 30% is dedicated to green jobs and building environmental resilience. 25% goes to hardcore project management, and the remaining 15% is reserved for those essential soft skills we talked about earlier. They are literally rewriting the public sector's operating system.
I absolutely love this summary directly from our source material. It reads, "The Pakistan Manpower Institute stands as a unique hybrid of a think tank and a training academy, an architect of human capital." And it perfectly encapsulates their journey. They evolved from a simple data repository counting laborers back in the 70s to a highly dynamic architect, literally shaping the minds that will run the country's future.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. Think about your own city, your own state, or your own country. How prepared is your local public sector for the rapid shift toward generative AI and environmental accountability? Are they stuck in the manual ledgers of the past, or are they actively architecting the human capital of the future? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep questioning the systems that shape our world.